Welcome to Your Worthy Career, a podcast for women in pharma and biotech with me, Melissa Lawrence. I am a certified career and leadership coach with a master's in organizational psychology who has worked in talent and learning development in biotech to large pharma, from non-clinical to commercial. I help women in pharma and biotech create a career worthy of them. Whether you want to get clear on what you want, get a new job, get promoted, or be effective as a leader at any level, this is the place for you. Every week, you will get practical career strategies and mindset shifts to help you overcome the problems you experience at work so you can reach your goals feeling better than ever. Your up level begins now. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. How are you? A little update for me. I feel like I haven't provided a personal update for a little while, but we are in graduation and start of the summer season, so we have been busy over here in our household between work and business, end of school activities, planning for the summer. There is a lot going on. And my son, I just want to give him a little shout out. He was just promoted at his job, so I am so proud of him. Although teenagers are not my typical clientele, I have been so encouraging of him to have conversations about new opportunities and pay increases. So he is being promoted to a manager, which is so cool. And my daughter, if I want to give her a shout out, she also just received a director's award for her participation and accomplishments in band and orchestra. And she has grown so much over the last couple of years. It's been really fun to see her come into her own. And I'm always so impressed with her thirst for knowledge and ability to pick up any instrument and learn it. It is crazy. It is so cute too how she will take like the Star Wars theme that Ellen really likes, or I like Mariah Carey, so she'll take like a Mariah Carey song and she'll just learn it on her own on the keyboard, or she does things with the various instruments that she uses. I always tell her that she should record each instrument individually and then overlay them. It's like her own band. So she is just so internally motivated, and it's just really fun to see. And we have some fun summer trips planned and some good family downtime. I really love and appreciate that quality time with my family, especially now that my kids are older. They're both teenagers. My son's going to be 18 next year. I just can't believe it. So I planned our vacations to be right in between Beyond the Ceiling cohorts. So after this round is complete in about a month, then we are going to open enrollment for the next round, and that next round is going to start August 23rd. But in between, I'm going to be spending some quality time at the beach and with my family. So everything is just really exciting and just really busy right now. So I also hope that you have some good plans for your summer too. Now let's dig into this week's topic. We are going to talk about how to get a dream role created for you. If you're new to me, you might be thinking, what in the world? You can get a dream job created for you? And if you've been in my world for a while, you know that this is my secret sauce for women in the pharma biotech industry. Now, there are the traditional ways of finding a new job or getting promoted, which are to scroll online, maybe even be doom scrolling, rage scrolling, applying to the jobs that you're qualified for, and then hoping you get an interview and an offer. Or if you're looking for a promotion, you might talk about it at your performance reviews or ask for a promotion from your boss one-on-one based on your performance and everything that you deliver and everything that you want related to your career goals. But then there are the other ways to get a new job or promotion that I've discovered. And when I look back at my career, I actually had my promotion or dream job created for me more than once, a few times actually. Now, I worked in pharma and biotech for about 12 years. And before that, I worked with the government and child welfare with the state of Wisconsin. In that role, I started as a specialist, and then I went to a supervisor, a site manager, a regional manager, and then a statewide manager. That's the last role that I had when I worked with the government. Now, I oversaw a group of people who worked with judges and social workers to ensure that they followed some federal guidelines and requirements for financial aid that was to support children who were placed in foster care. Now, for most of these promotions, they happened in the traditional way. I was a good performer, I delivered, and a role opened up, like someone left or a new role was needed, and then I was able to move into that role and get that promotion. But in the last role, the statewide manager role, this is something that was created for me. This role essentially put all the other managers who managed a specific site throughout the state of Wisconsin reporting to me. And then I was going to be the leader that was reporting to our state director. Now, I've talked on some of the management episodes of the podcast about my experience with this transition because, as you can imagine, not all of the management team was thrilled to report to me, okay? They saw this change as a demotion to them because instead of reporting to the state director, they were now reporting to a 20-something woman in the senior manager level. But how this role happened is because I solved a problem that no one else could solve. I was not only good at my job, but I became the go-to audit person. Now, this is experience that would lend itself to the industry very well, given how regulated our pharma biotech space is. Now, when I worked with the government, we would have federal audits every couple of years, and they would review our submissions. They would come for a week, just like the FDA or other regulatory body, and they would comb through everything. They would take a randomized sample of cases, and then they would look at everything that we did in that case from beginning to end. So you can imagine, say, a child is removed from their home, they're in the foster care system for 5 years. Every year there would have to be a review. So they would go and they would look at everything we did from the beginning, determination of eligibility, all the way through every year of that continued eligibility, the amounts of funds that the state government had received from the federal government. And then they would just confirm that everything was aligned and that everything was following the regulations in order to receive that aid. And one of my favorite things about my job was defending our cases. Imagine me as the handler, okay? Like, imagine, I always think of Olivia Pope from Scandal. I loved that show when it was on. And I would be the person that would just be called in to solve the problem. So I would have a war room in the back where when a case was pulled, we would do a rigorous review, find any risks, and then we would have a strategy for any questions that would come up. Then when an auditor had a question, I would be the one that was sent in to defend the case. Now, it was a bit of a rush. Unlike FDA or industry audits, we didn't have multiple people talking to the auditing body. So, for example, the person who did the work, who actually completed the submission, completed the forms, made the determination, wouldn't be the person who answered the question. So we didn't have different subject matter experts coming in and talking to auditors. Instead, I would learn the case, and then I would be the person to field all questions strategically. And we passed every audit because we did a great job. And everything was on the up and up. So I not only became the audit person, but I also partnered with the state to provide training to judges, social workers, and staff at an annual meeting. I then helped the other sites become more compliant and raise their funding levels. So even the managers who weren't happy to report to me, it was more about their perceived demotion and that I was a young woman, and especially for the older men that impacted, than it was about my competence, because they flat out told me they could see why I intellectually got that promotion, why I was put into that role. It made sense. It didn't feel good to them. So when I got the promotion, it was because I could increase funding at the state level, get buy-in from others, work with people across different county lines, and manage change effectively. And all of this made my boss's life easier. So instead of her trying to get 5 sites on board with the change, do periodic audits on the site, because we did that too, and oversee the day-to-day, I could do those things. And I had demonstrated that I could do it well and had a vision for how I could make her job easier. So I was able to get a promotion because I knew my value proposition. I knew how I could increase results and make life easier for my leadership. Now notice that these reasons have nothing to do with the increase in salary that I received, the visibility, or the increased leadership responsibilities. In fact, this promotion I didn't make about me at all. It was about how I could help the company, how I could help my leader, right? Which is the same for you. It was all about the value for my employer. The problem that people get into is they make their promotion all about them and the entitlement of what they deserve. Right? When you have to focus more strategically on the outcome what I want, right? Because they're both there and one is going to be more influential than the other. So When I moved into industry, it might surprise you to know that promotions weren't just given to me, right? I had to continue the conversation after every ask for a promotion or salary increase to see it all the way through the finish line and pivot as needed. So I'm not someone that is going to say, oh, well, every job that I got was easy. Every promotion that I got was easy. And so now I teach people how to do it, but I actually never had any problems. That's not true at all. I had to find the business case for my promotion or new job, even before I knew what that meant. Now, when I look back, of course, I can see it's like hindsight's 2020. I can see what I did, but I didn't realize it in the beginning when I was doing it. When I got my master's degree in organizational psychology, I thought that surely would get me a salary bump. After all, I used that degree and did an internal internship to implement what I learned. I did special projects for my company, directly correlating to skyrocketing our culture engagement survey results and improving retention. And I got the kudos for that verbally, but not in my paycheck. And when I asked about that increase, I was told no. The reason I was given is because the job that I was in, that I was hired for, or the last role that I had been promoted into, didn't require a master's in organizational psychology. Therefore, me getting that, even though it helps me do my job better and more effectively and has a proven correlation to the bottom line of the company that I worked for, it wasn't justification. Are you kidding me? Seriously. So I did the job better and increased the scope of my job as a result. And they told me that the $10,000 of tuition reimbursement was my raise. Okay. Now, I knew I wasn't paid as well as I should have been for what I was doing too, but they told me I was the top of my band, and come to find out I was not in the right band. Now, I started to get more strategic. I could have just gotten mad. I could have just said, I'm going to leave this place, like, screw you, right? But I didn't. I liked a lot of things about the company. I saw the potential, right? And so I decided this is an opportunity for me to get more strategic, for me to work on my skills, to build relationships outside of my management and connect with people who did the work I wanted to do. And for me, this was the Global Talent and Development Department. At first, it was just for exposure, right? I wanted to be around the people that did the work that I found really valuable. And those relationships were a great return on investment of my time. I was able to get more visible projects and recognition outside of my site. And there were even global VPs that were reaching out to the head of my department to say, hey, I know Melissa on your team. She's great. What do you have her working on? She has excellent ideas. And just imagine getting a message like that for yourself, right? It completely changed some things for me. And this was part of the push that then got my leadership to look at my role more closely and see, okay, well, maybe it would give our site better exposure. Maybe this is good to elevate this role. It was a breadcrumb. Because think about it. A situation that I find some of my clients get into, which was a similar situation I was in, is that when you work for a company for a number of years, and it doesn't have to be 10, 15 years, it could be 5. The way that you are perceived initial on when someone meets you tends to carry throughout your career. People just naturally have a hard time seeing you differently as you grow. So you may grow your skills, your talents, your capabilities. You may have more interests, but your leadership, the people around you may still see you the same and not see that growth. It's kind of like your family, how a lot of times when we get around our family, we become, like for me, my family calls me Missy, okay? No one call me Missy, but my family calls me Missy. And it's so funny to say that because nobody else in my life calls it. I haven't said Missy in a while. But anyway, so my family calls me Missy. And when I go home and see my family in Wisconsin, they call me Missy, Aunt Missy, right? It's very different. And they see me as Aunt Missy. They see me as Sister Missy, Daughter Missy, right? They don't see me as the business owner, Melissa Lawrence. Like, they don't see me that way, right? And it's kind of like that at work, not maybe as great of a difference, but it's kind of like that where you'll have people that meet you and they'll see you how you were the first time that they met you, or they'll see you for the role or title you have, and they'll see anything extra as kind of development or something that's not really needed, like an extra nice to have, right? And so I felt like that's how I was. And like the pigeonhole I was in, I feel like my clients get in that situation too when they want to make a pivot or when they've grown their skills and they're looking to do something more and they're just running into roadblocks. And so that's something that we have to overcome. And one way that I overcame that was through my exposure to other people, to departments and leaders outside of my immediate work group, outside of my site even, right? Because those people didn't know me. And so they got to know me with the way that I had grown, the skill set that I had developed, who I was at that time, not who I was 5 or 6 years before that. It also helps because your direct leaders may have a perception of you based on what other people say about you, right? And those people then have that perception of who you used to be and not who you are now. So getting insights and getting allyship from people that don't know you can be very beneficial, especially when you're looking to make a bigger internal pivot, okay? So after this, or around the same time, I started to seek mentors that were very different from me. So imagine a leader that you don't agree with and thinks maybe makes bad decisions or decisions for the wrong reasons. I reached out to some of these people with a plate of humble pie and said, hey, would you please be my mentor? Or could we please have a, mentorship conversation? I want to learn more about how you make decisions regarding talent, and I'd love to offer my thoughts or analysis based on what I learned in grad school. And listen, this wasn't easy for me to do. It was a strategic decision. I knew I was the best at what I did. I knew I shouldn't have to have this type of conversation. I knew I had the experience and education to improve the employee experience and make a bigger impact. In fact, I had already proven that. But at the end of the day, I wasn't being heard. At the end of the day, I wasn't in the meetings with the senior leaders. So I, again, could decide, do I want to just be frustrated or do I want to change the outcome? So I needed to try something different. Resisting the leadership wasn't getting me closer to my goal. So I decided to embrace a growth mindset and see what I could learn, be open and focus on the outcome that I wanted. And this is a really popular problem for people to have. People will have this sometimes even in coaching, right? When you get used to doing something over and over again, and then you have someone challenging you, telling you there's a new way, telling you to try something new. Sometimes it can be hard to embrace that new way of doing things because you're so used to doing things the way that you've always done them, right? And it's similar to this. Like, you don't want to feel like you have to do something, like you have to ask for help. You have to build relationships with these people. Your work should stand on its own. Your delivery should stand on its own. But at the end of the day, if you're not getting the result you want, if you're not in the job that you want, then we have to look at things differently, right? And that's what I help you do, is figure out that different way that you can approach it and then make sure you cross that finish line, okay? So in this relationship with this mentorship, I got even more exposure. I had our site head sending me confidential information to analyze and provide recommendations. I got invited to meetings that I wouldn't have otherwise. I was able to pitch my idea for a pilot program to raise the scores around the manager and employee relationship, communication from leadership, and overall intervention to lower the turnover rate. Now, because of these moves, I got it approved. Then, of course, I had to deliver, and I did. And then that pilot program got implemented as a mandate across our entire state, which was really cool. And then it got shared across all of biologics operations and used globally. Now, the takeaway here is that sometimes just asking for the job isn't effective. You need a more strategic approach. This is what I help my clients do, is we analyze what they've done, their current situation, and then we find the in. We find the hidden opportunity or door that you haven't done yet and can't see. Then we execute. Sometimes the change happens right away, in just a month or two. Sometimes, like the last time I did this for myself, it took about a year, but it paid off big time. My group was only training when I started. And because of me, it became training and talent development. I completely changed the way my site collaborated with above site groups. I got our site more learning opportunities and programs that were only available to other sites before. I was able to put in a DE&I strategy and coaching program. I was able to get representation at talent conversations. I was able to design leadership development and training programs and implement them. I was able to measure management effectiveness and improve it. I did a lot, and it was my dream job for a period of time. Now, in this case, I had to prove myself first and for longer than I wanted, to be honest. And I had to build more relationships than I expected. But I wouldn't have been promoted to the director level without it. I wouldn't have been able to literally add talent and development to a site that never had it before without those steps. Now, again, when I've helped my clients do this, it happens more quickly and often more simply because the way I did this for myself was years ago. And I've since made this my career and full-time focus on helping women design their unique career path in pharma or biotech and execute on it. So I've developed a lot of intellectual property processes, and I have a lot of experience of doing this over and over. I'm able to see with precision what you need to do to get ahead. Then you implement it, with me coaching you every step of the way. So when roadblocks come up, we overcome them. When you think you're doing everything and you're really not, I catch it, right? When you get stuck in the old patterns, we overcome it. When you're not feeling confident, when you think you don't have to, like all of these things, we're able to coach on it so that you not only get the strategy that works, but you actually see it all the way through, whether it's an internal role or an external role. Now, over my 12 years in industry, I worked in a variety of types of companies. When I left the government role, that is when I moved into industry. I found that the higher I rose in leadership, though, the less connected I was to the people, and I discovered I really needed that connection, and I wanted to help people learn and show them how development could transform their career. And that was 16 to 17 years ago already, my gosh. So there was a job opening for a trainer in quality assurance with a CRO, a contract research organization, Covance, which is now LabCorp, I think. Now, I was hired into the role, but it almost didn't happen. As you can imagine, the QA group was very hesitant to have me join because I didn't have a science degree. Now, lucky for me, they had their training group centralized into a learning and performance center, so QA was the stakeholder, but not the hiring group. Eventually, they got on board, but it took a while. Their valid, very valid point is, like, when you look at this outside looking in, is they required a science degree for their auditors. So how could I teach new auditors how to do the job if I didn't have the basic qualifications that they require? Well, I came in and I cut their training time down by 66%. They went from a 9-month training process to a 3 with improved quality. Now you can imagine they were astonished. And let me tell you, I never saw myself knowing how to audit non-clinical toxicology data. But there I was, learning how to audit for enrichment, doing necropsies, auditing statistical data, and auditing reports, all of the things. Now, in my 2 to 3 years that I was at Covance, I went from QA trainer to instructional designer to performance consultant. And then I had the opportunity to move to human genome sciences in Maryland. This is another example of the power of relationships. At my time with Covance, I built relationships with another site in Vienna, Virginia. And I was able to visit a few times, and I loved the area out here. And when Covance closed that site and laid off everyone there, I was devastated. But my relationships sustained. They were genuine relationships. And one of my colleagues started working at Human Genome Sciences, and when a role for a training manager of research and development opened up, he suggested that I would be the perfect fit. I had the management experience, and I had a proven training track record, so I had this unique hybrid of skills. So I became the front runner. They flew me out and hired me right away, then moved my whole family out. It was fantastic. Now I was moving out of Wisconsin for the first time, whole family in tow, and starting a new life in Maryland. And I loved working there, but within a few months, GSK acquired HGS, and with that, kept pretty much the only people who contributed to the manufacturing of Benlysta. So I was given a generous severance package and started working at Emergent Biosolutions as their training manager. And this is where I met my now wife, Ellen. Now, what I liked about Emergent's training group is that it didn't exist. There wasn't one. So I got to build it, but they really weren't at a stage to embrace learning and development as a strategy, so it wasn't a good fit. They were still really stuck in compliance SOP reading as training. Plus, once Ellen and I were together, I think it was better for our careers to not work at the same place so we could really thrive and build our careers independently. So I started looking and landed on a role with AstraZeneca. Now, they were revitalizing their training group and operations. They wanted someone who knew learning and development and the science behind it, not just a subject matter expert who could train technically. So they hired me to create their training strategy for the site. And I think my first role was a learning manager. I don't remember the exact title they put in the system or what my offer letter said, but it was something like a learning manager, which then evolved into more performance consulting and human performance and ultimately talent and organizational development. Now, something I want to add is you likely have a talent or skill that is your secret sauce that could be guiding your career, but you're not aware of it. When I look back at what I'm good at, what I'm meant to do, it all makes sense that I'm a career and leadership coach and that I help women elevate their careers and design their own path. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to call it. I had been told for years that I should be a consultant or have my own business. In fact, our senior leadership told me with one of my no's before I got that yes to the promotion that people who wanted to do what I do are consultants. They're not internal employees. But I showed him when I had that role created for me a year later. But also, he was kind of right because I did end up going to create my own business, and now I do coaching and consulting directly with women in industry. Now, I do this because it's unbiased and it gets you better results. Because people will ask me, like, why do you do contracts with companies? Do you work internally? Like, why did you go out on your own? So one of my pain points when I created a coaching program in the industry is that there was a lot of red tape with the management and HR having to be informed of any red flags and general topics. So it wasn't really a truly safe space. I kept things confidential. However, if I have to tell if your manager is doing something wrong, if I have to tell who I'm coaching, then obviously it's not going to be the same experience as what it is now, where you come and you meet with me and it's very private, your work doesn't know, and everything can just be in full service to you. And we work through problems with your manager as opposed to telling on you. Also, when coaching is forced on you, you're not invested in it. There's times that HR or HR business partners would be like, I want you to go in and coach this person who's struggling as a manager and doesn't know that their manager complains about them. And, that's a tough spot to be in. And when you're forced to be in those conversations as an employee, you're not really coachable, right? You don't want to change when you don't think you're wrong. Now, women like you hire me for their careers, and you have someone who is on your side, who knows what it's like and has an expertise in helping you navigate the problems you face and get a new job, promotion, improve your skills, and so on. And your boss and HR aren't involved. I'm as committed to reaching your goals as you are. It actually doesn't benefit me if you stay in a job you don't like. If you don't reach your goals, that is harmful to me, right? Because I have a track record of getting women in the industry results. So of course I want you to get results. So anyway, when I found organizational development before I got my master's, that was because a boss, not a great one, but he did give me this. I was complaining about how a change was rolled out and the impact it would have on our employees and that it wasn't a good decision. And he said something to me like, you have a lot of ideas about how we should do things differently. Have you considered pursuing organizational development? And I was like, what? And then I did some research. I started going to grad school part-time, and the rest is history. So my point is, though, that there are things that you are good at and there are giving you clues to your next step, but you might not be able to see them. This is why I have my career protocol process. This is a 5-part tool that helps you get career clarity and direction and gives you step-by-step actions that you should take to know that next step in your career that is going to play to your strengths, use your talents, and help you make a difference. Once you have this career protocol, you're going to know what jobs and companies meet all of your needs, not just some. And then we create your personalized strategy to get the role you want. We disrupt the industry norms and identify the hidden doors that exist for you to get a new job or promotion, even created for you. Now, if you remember from my own story, when I did this for myself, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew what problems I wanted to solve, the problems I was good at solving, the value proposition. And this is the foundation for having your dream role created for you and what is the foundation of the work I do with my clients. Plus, when you know this process, you're able to replicate it. And then you always know what you want and how to get it for the rest of your career. You will achieve salary increases and promotions that reflect the value that you bring to the table. You change your role so it plays to your strengths. It brings you more joy and sets you up for the next step in your career again and again and again. All right. That is all for this week's episode of the podcast. I hope it gave you some insight and inspiration for how you can get your next role, your dream job, created for you. I'll talk to you next week. Hey, the episode is over. I want to let you in on a secret. There are 4 hidden ways you can use to advance your career as a woman in pharma or biotech that your boss or HR doesn't want you to know about. These are strategies that are proven to work even after you've been told no. Save yourself so much time and advance your career on your terms by downloading the strategies at my website, yourworthycareer.com/hidden. They're completely free. Go get them now.